Okay, I think that now it should be okay. Can you hold it on your desk, please? Thank you. All right, sorry for that. House disabled participant screen share. Can I say it again, please? Sorry. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll start with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. A little bit of adventure today. Sorry for that. From the heart of the savior of the 100 deities of the Shita, on the peak of cloud resembling a clump of extremely white fresh curry. King of Dhamma, omniscient, lost and Drapa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, on the lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure guru smiles with delight. Supreme full of merit from a mind of faith, please abide for 100 eons to spread the teachings. Your holy mind and intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is as ear and ornament of those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, are prostrate. Pleasant drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, light-scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that I've collected from beginning this time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strive for much learning and practicing in this degenerate age and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns. Seven, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect pure holy gurus from the billion clouds of wisdom and compassion escarp the Dhammakaya. Please let fall a rain of upon extensive Dhamma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. May whatever virtue have collected benefit the teachings and alone transmigrated beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of perfect pure loss and Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. Sashi Porki Joshime Tamri Rablikshi Nidegem Padi Sangye Shindu Lite Hoa Gindokunamda Shinla Chopasho. For the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his 2 sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one, Losang Drakpa, who is the morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idang Guru Ratna Mandala Kandiyatayami. By the force of having fervently progresses in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Sons, and combining into one, enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of pure white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and the imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. In page 13, we will recite the 5-line Minsima verse 3 times. Mimetse with the Chen Rezi, Jame Kimbe Wampo Jampe Yang, Dutsu Malu Jonze Sanweda, Kanchen Kimbe Tsugen Songapa, Losandra Peshabla Sowade, Mimetse with the Chen Rezi, Jame Kimbe Wampo Jampe Yang, Dupu Malu Jonze Sanweda, Kanchen Kimbe Tsugen Songapa, Losandra Peshabla Sowade, Mimetse with the Chen Rezi, Making be one po jampe, dojo malu jongse sanweda, kanchen kebe tsugen tsongapa, losan jape shabla soa de.
Sangye Chodan Tsoji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyabsunchi Dagi Chushi Giben Tsoman Rolam Benji Sangye Drupara Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyabsunchi Dagi Chushi Giben Tsoman Rolam Benji Sangye Drupara Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Kyabsunchi Dagi Chushi Gibe Tsonam Gi Drola Benche Sangye Drupara Sho Kanki Tuzeni Zone Dava Tamche Pombi Shere Tambi Chun Dunze Kodam Jela Chanselo Good morning everyone. 참도 예죠. 저살때는 샤바장기랑 몬트범에가 송소 삽티고 롱제장 지르라.
So, after a little adventure in the morning, we're going to pick up from the text, from the point that we left off in the previous session. So, we've been looking at the states of the path of those of the great scope within the presentation of the Lamrim. We've covered a sevenfold cause and effect personal instruction practice, and we've started with the practice of equalizing and exchanging self with others. So, in this section explaining the practice of equalizing and exchanging self with others, we've looked at the quotation coming from the Compendium of Trainings. It says, through familiarity with the equality of others and self, Bodhichitta grows firm. Self and others are rational, and just as false as that side and this side. The slope is not that side by itself. Depending on the perspective, it's this side. The self in itself is not established. Depending on the perspective, it's others.
Dereda dadni zudi chanjuk sem yadang tolaya sunguyoros rasa jindini kiw chembilangta zu chanjuk sem ani chanjuk sem sedi da kiwi tabda masona ani dagjin nyamje de junde menga du ki koni lo janju rambani ki ton ta tandi kamdilya ani dagjin nyambati dagjin nyambi toni ani semki onde data shen nyamba imbati data shen nyamba imbati kandaji dugo res la onde randa shen seadi tuni shagba samre mado ani rang singiji shen la made ba rang ngun chobata shen seadi rang la made ba pe ani ngoni toni chobashik yomares ra disungun das.
So this section covers the way to develop bodhicitta and the mind of enlightenment. And the method here is the practice of equalizing and exchanging self with others. So we've covered before the sevenfold cause and effect personal instructions as a method for developing bodhicitta. And now we're looking at the second method, which is equalizing and exchanging self with others, beginning with cultivating the equality of self and others. So then if you wonder, how then do I equalize self and others? Well, we do that through, first of all, understanding that self and others can be posited only in relation to each other. In that self doesn't exist as self by way of its own entity without depending on others, and others do not exist as others by way of their own entity without depending upon the self. So these two can only be posited in relation to each others.
Yul kanda jin ba na ya rangi ngon ni ji chaban zamba ra yudin yobata ba ani lo da hachang gi shukche ta wondi ani ram da shen se gi ani parta rimbu shu ra rang la ya ji ani dewan de na gawa da lungal chon da mundi bi lo shuk chezam yobadi jeng to le ma tu ya zo di rangi ngon ni ji chaban zimbi gi lo di shuk chetewe wangi yimba inza di ani ya nimbo ten kwantanchik ra have to the shondi so disungores.
So if we cannot cultivate this equality between self and others, we will not be able to develop bodhicitta. So here, the section that explains how to equalize self with others, it begins with recognizing that whatever phenomenon might be in question, we tend to perceive that phenomenon in question as existing by way of its own entity, as if it exists objectively. And through the perspective of adhering to phenomena as if they exist objectively, there's a great gap that is created between a self and other phenomena, between self and others, as if they exist discretely by way of their own entity. And so long as that happens for that long, we're incapable of caring much for suffering sentient beings, thinking, may they be free from suffering or may they have happiness. So long as we strongly adhere to phenomena to exist in a way that they appear to us as if they exist objectively, we'll not be able to do that properly.
Lamrim kandajil teba ina ani kyun tartukbadi kyun gzawadi dangzin seaderes rangoni chubun lo teres da di yo chinjalaya ani chagdan yondeya chori yondeya dunga yondeya timbashi chagwansa ani di dangzin di meba soyagi tabsanamdu nimbusanamdu di ani da meba seati da me seati chönam rangi ngoni jitibi tong 아니 니루 디싱고 바디 디송고도 아스라.
So whatever text we follow, whatever Lamrim presentation we follow, we always address in those texts the ignorance of grasping at a self, which is grasping at phenomena to exist from the on side. And because of that grasping at phenomena to exist by way of their own entity from the on side, anger and attachment arise in our mind, which means that partiality occurs in our mind. And so long as our mind is partial due to anger and attachment, for that long, we'll continue to perform actions that will result in suffering. So the method to eliminate the grasping at the self is through cultivating the view of selflessness. And we use the term selflessness, which means that phenomena are empty of existing from the on-side. Since they're empty of existing from the on-side, they're selfless.
Ani chi ngobo ina da chi nang chu sumjin chik nyen de senamandu pe chik ga the magasa the kanda chik imba ya ani you think ni matribi ge nisul telia ani kaduna sound tangwa da ki cheshu는 cheshi ro 디송도 도스라 다 가데나야 송 간다질 때나야 야갈 키비 송 간다질 때 바이나야 벽해번 장고 넘어 쏜거 버치면 송 뽀드접기 가발은 제바이나야 아니 네루 똥번이기 tel야 툭데바디 세부 쇼지레스
So whatever phenomena might be in question, whatever phenomena we observe, there's a strong grasping that comes together with that, as strong grasping at these phenomena to exist objectively. And all of the problems and difficulties that we experience arise from that grasping at phenomena as if they exist objectively. So therefore, it is then important to look at how we grasp at different phenomena in this way. It might be external phenomena or internal phenomena, people that are close to us, the people that we like, the people that we dislike. We need to remind ourselves that though they appear to us to exist objectively, they do not exist in this way. This is the most important thing to do. And this is also what is emphasized in the scriptures of the Indian masters and also great Tibetan masters such as Lama Tsongkhapa, who composed 18 texts of teachings, 18 volumes of teachings. The most important point that comes across in Lama Tsongkhapa's writing and other writings as well is the need, the importance of viewing phenomena as lacking objective existence.
그래 든디도지 이제 드니마 다 가르송도 슬랑디 양 셴기 동거 달라 밀레베 티세비던데 멤베토 냠비 케이크 서버니스 당한줄로래 남도 담을 용과서 따로 갈리우도 게 가르친 세고 셀 소버다 딘디 삼바이나스 다 디아 케이크레스 로 수수 냠네 지야 케이크레스.
So then there are many obstacles that could come up in our mind for the practice of equalizing self with others. Like, for example, we might be thinking that, why should I do that? After all, that person is harming me. So what's the point in practicing it? So here the text says, you must remove the obstacle of thinking, since the suffering of others does not harm me, I need not make an effort to remove it. We have to rid ourselves of such ways of thinking which are obstacles for practicing the equality of self with others.
벤존 잠로지로 셴기 동할 그 갈 누구문도 게 셴기 동할 세고야기 된다문도 삼손로지 아니 지 셴기 갈이야 지 팽금문도 게 셴라야 셴 제경 제고야 문도 삼손로지 아니 셴기 갈 누구도 아니 게파 가르친 제경 제고를 삼손 어 딘디게 남도 참을로디 아니 랑기 찬추 셈기야기 계획차도 버렸어 가긴 차도
So here just thought, since the suffering of others does not harm me, I need not make an effort to remove it. It's just one example of this way of thinking that can act as an obstacle for practicing this practice of equalizing, exchanging self with others. So we can also think, well, the person is not really helping me. They're not benefiting me. So why should I care about them? The person is harming me. So why should I be practicing equalizing self with others? So such ways of thinking, such conceptual thinkings are always acting as obstacles for the development of equalizing oneself with others, which is a step for developing bodhicitta. So we have to rid ourselves of such obstacles.
소소리야 펜다 마펜세디 지단 펜술들이야 네급기 펜바용 당당 아니 타르투 풀려야 펜바용 수 니 여러와서라 대장한 저기 아니 펜바디 네급 펜바마도 타르투 펜바 돌아야 다 시그마도 와이나 non-truk digit samada legiosares. Tartuki pay the some to by na Tartu Nanzula cargore Nanzuchu ten Nevadi Tawa the Tamji Kimbi Komban Rata and re one chute ten Neva Nata Tawa the Tamji Kimbi Komban ten Yergoras Ra Madoching Messi Kibuchi the Messi Namachik and T Yoyak Chedu and it pen Lamrim Lozon Chevaina pen the Penger de Inia and it piggy mixa down 아니 비 탑님보디 아니 차만저도치 아니 미유도 친종 쇼지 아니 탑도 전부 쇼지 잡아야나 그 고대 매겨서지 차도라스 다 미유디 부경 림부 아니 타와도 탐진 캠바 딘디지기 아니 미유 샤토 바이나 아니 단지기 객 참말로 세야래야 아니 가시 프로젝트가니 아니 론 죽토야지 야자 야다마 연구여서리스 롱홍기 개바 남주 전투소 개부 탐방 원의 단위기 쌈기메 개바도소 아니 죽토야 가르스나 뉴스 시트고 알아서 난주 마토야 난주 만통야 난주 마식 몸병 게레 마도 드조기 펜도 메바 딘디 싸우니 말해 왔으라
So then when we think that the person is not helping me, hasn't helped me, it's not helping me, so why should I care for them? This notion of helping or benefiting ourselves is only focusing on the short term. So then when we think of short term, or you can say occasional help, or long term, final benefit or help that we get from others, which ones do we consider when we think the person is not helping me? Well, we often think only on the short term, on occasional help that we get from others, and we don't think of the long term, the final help and benefit that we get from others. And this is the mistake that we are making, because when we think of the final sense of help or benefit that we get from others, the final one would be our own attainment of liberation, or our own attainment of the state of omniscience, the state of Buddha. And others are certainly helpful, beneficial in our attainment of that long-term final goal. So when we look at our objectives and the methods that we're using in order to pursue those objectives, we see that often there's a discrepancy between our objectives and the method. In that, for example, looking at that from the perspective of the Lamrim, the steps of the path to enlightenment. So our objective might be really small or limited in that we might be focusing mainly on things that belong to this life and so forth. And yet the methods that are explained in the Lamrim are really vast and extensive. So in that sense, if our objective is really small, but we use those vast and extensive methods, there's a discrepancy here. Whereas if our objectives become quite large, in that particularly when we think about it in terms of the Lamrim, our final objective would be to attain the state of liberation or enlightenment. And for that end, we use those extensive methods. There is a match, there's a correspondency between the method and the objectives. And as such, it will also enable us to overcome obstacles. And not only it will enable us to overcome obstacles, we do that happily with a great sense of joy. We'll become enthused about removing the obstacles for pursuing a final goal. So this is what the great Indian masters of the past have explained. But often we don't really see that, we don't really know or understand that, but this is what we need to look at, how we match together this kind of extensive objective with the methods for pursuing that objective.
그러다 객세원에서 대단한 기비치 동화와 돈이 전류 투수 노르소바 매번 gör대 기비 동화기 셴발라 밀레비처 대신도 깜비 동화야 라베 메세번 gör대 제임비처로 셰송소스.
So then the text says, you must remove the obstacles of thinking that since the suffering of others does not harm me, I need not make an effort to remove it. If this were the case, there would be no need to accumulate wealth when young out of concern for the suffering of old age, since the suffering of the elderly person would not harm the youth. It was also said that the hand would likewise not eliminate the sufferings of the foot because there are other. This is a mere illustration and should also be applied to the suffering of the morning and those of the evenings and so forth.
Tenen tsumba zamingi ngadu chudu solayang jaros kedi genshin gyunchi yinshi kanla tsoba ji yimbe ranshin ni dam mindawo nyamna gyun dam tsoba ni keji mambo dam tsoba ji mambo la takba tsam yingi rangyawi ngomela rangi dagdan shengi dagyan gyun tsogyu tela jogobi dagshin Döni shakpatsam mimbi rangi ngontraba metos döshaktsam mimbi dagshin döshaktsam mimbi rangi ngontraba meto wenja papa tomenni jinjin kombi wangi konda wenja toma mebani jinjin kombi wangi rangi dongal jongala musuba yimbi shenlaya jinjin komna ti dongalaya musuba kiwa yenos.
And then it continues in reading, someone might think self and other are not the same as this, since the elderly person and the youth are the same continuum and the hand and the foot are the same collection. A continuum and a collection are imputed to many instances in a combination of many parts. They lack an autonomous nature. Since your own self and the self of others must be posited on a continuum or a collection, self and others are not inherently established apart from mere relation. Yet your own suffering is unbearable owing to the power of familiarization with self-cherishing from beginningless time. Therefore, if you familiarize yourself with cherishing others, the sufferings will also become unbearable.
Dan 이번에 달라 착비 왕기 란체버 손디스 라 먼저 란진진기 란체버 진비 로슈크체부 여바디 착비 왕기 종아레스 착비 왕기 종원디 코 토버 메바니 다 바르도 문제반 하소 깨라스 니기 문제반 하소 깨라 란 푼소식 제번 되장 란든 소손데 타마인 발라 슈비 kawa thangin deba mambo sonya rangshin ji ten khaya mandru ba tsang de masi dungan bashi gi nawar gyur randin gi samba de shenla pöni shuna che shun ngawa sangi ni rangshin ji ten tamje pusun soban gyo ten musawala tedar mache ba kala teme ba dün daso dani tedar shiba chela dai chok da jinjin de tenshi 때는 배바 되면 마기바 메기바든 게바 균순도 무슈고 냠비 네바 템퍼레처는 렌토머 콤바체바오.
So then the actual way to meditate begins with saying, by the power of attachment to the self-cherishing has produced much that is undesirable from beginningless time up to now. So then if we first of ask ourselves, where does this strong notion of cherishing the self come from? Well, it comes from attachment, and attachment has been operating in our mind stream since beginningless time. And therefore it says, by the power of attachment to the self, this self-cherishing has produced much that is undesirable from beginningless time up to now. Despite the fact that you have wanted to create excellence for yourself, you have relied on unsuitable means, contemplating your own welfare as paramount. Owing to this, neither your own welfare nor that of others have been accomplished despite the passing of countless eons. Not only you have failed to accomplish that, you have only been tormented by suffering. If you had shifted the concern for your own welfare to that of others, you would have become a Buddha a long time ago, and both your own and others' welfare would have become excellent without a doubt. But since you did not do that, the time has been spent in meaningless exertion. So think, now that I have understood this, I will rely on the mindfulness and vigilance that this self-cherishing is my worst enemy, and make much effort so that the self-cherishing that has not arisen does not arise, and that which has arisen does not last long. Having made this certainty firm, familiarize yourself with it many times. By thinking about the benefits of cherishing others again and again in this way, you will generate strong enthusiasm to do so from the depth of your heart.
Keba gun tundu mushukjin, shen lap pang batang, duk batang, yidong, chiki guane, har rang la jeban zimba shen la jeban zimbi lo kebar chawos.
So first off, it addresses self-cherishing, and when it addresses cherishing others, it says, by thinking about the benefits of cherishing others again and again in this way, you will generate strong enthusiasm to do so from the depth of your heart. You will not generate new mental states that are neglectful of others, and any that have arisen will not last long. By giving rise to whatever degree you can to the thought that others are dear, pleasant, and likable, generate the mind cherishing others just as you have previously cherished yourself.
Tandinangolaya rang jinzen dang shen jinzen sagi tsikni tenyore sra rang jinzen di dala chakbi wangi ani kewa thoma mebani ta dala chakbi wangi ani rang jinzen shukchenpo di lebares ra kiyores ta digi mundoba tam chiki ta ani kasa ta jongkong tawaro chikiri sonra ta dine ina ani shen cheban zamba kebalaya shen la ya jik chakpa gomgo gores shen la chakpa logo gores na tanda chakpa di ani cholong jengi ta decha derwa ta rang la chak sibi chakpa di ani cholong jengi decha deres ta shen la ya jik pi ta ani chok sunhong wi chakpa di kewa na ani shen jinzen chanjugu sen la ya penya gi ani shen jinzen gi lo di ke tugu mares.
So there are two terms that this section mentions, self-cherishing and cherishing others. And it says with respect to the first one, self-cherishing, that due to attachment to the self, we have since time without beginning and up until now, we have generated this strong sense of cherishing ourselves, and all unwanted things arise from this strong self-cherishing that arises because of attachment to ourselves. So then when we think of cherishing others, does it mean then that in order to cherish others, we need to generate attachment to them? In that if cherishing ourselves arises because of attachment, does it mean that in order to cherish others, we need to become attached to them? Well, attachment is a partial state of mind. And if attachment, this partiality, will be generated in relation to others, it will only act as an obstacle for developing bodhicitta.
Mares kanji kam di shen jinzingi lo yongya la ya ani chakpa dandabi kanji shen yidong tongwi yonggi chamba ani shen la ziwi zewa dindri chi gom to wa na ani shen cheba zimbi lo di yongyores.
At times, great compassion is given the name attachment. And although in some contexts, great compassion is given the name attachment, in that you're attached to others, this mode of expression doesn't really speak of fully qualified attachment, real attachment. So we need then to, in order to develop a mind of cherishing others, we need to see others as likable, to find them appealing to our mind. If we find them appealing to our mind, if we find other sentient beings as being likable, we will use that as a basis for developing love and concern for others, to develop compassion towards others. Through that, we will come to cherish them.
Chamba the Ninji John Mishibi, Chanchu Semba, Pegi Shiba songs.
And so Atisha said, the Tibetans celebrate bodhisattvas who do not know how to train in love and compassion.
Chojipanda Adisha, Pella Pemda, Lamrim Chignang, Tu Chiondi. Any Chanju Sembas Laundita, and it's Achimbo Shoji, that Jigi Girasra, Inaya, Chanju Sembi Combo Tobalaya, and it's Chamba the Ninji Gomgores Laundi, any Rande Mado, and it's Shen Yawa Tova Mado, Shen Chebanzimbi, Lord the Mevainza, and Chanju Sems Laund, Chanju Sembas Laund, Shoji Gawaje, in a Chanju Sem Bakiagi Gu, and it's Chamba the Ninji Laya. And Lojong Road, Kuni, Chero Majidi, and Chojipanda Adisha that took those Shumba inside that Pepatozogi, and it Chamba the Ninji, John Mishibi, Chanju Semji, Pepato Shingadoas. So song inside that.
So here, Lama Tsongkhapa refers to Atisha, who said the Tibetans celebrate bodhisattvas who do not know how to. The Tibetans celebrate bodhisattvas who do not know how to train in love and compassion. So what the teacher referred to is the Tibetan attitude. No, so first of all, Atisha was the one who taught the first Lamrim text. And then Tibetans started to appreciate bodhisattvas and hold them to be so precious, so dear. But to attain the state of a bodhisattva, one needs to generate compassion. And while they were holding bodhisattvas to be so precious and so dear, still at the same time, they cared only for their own welfare and have neglected others. So here Atisha pointed out a certain discrepancy in that if Tibetans like bodhisattvas, they also like bodhicittas, but they do not train in the causes for developing bodhicitta. So there is discrepancy here. So it seems that kind of when Atisha said that, it was a little bit dismayed or dejected about how Tibetans were going about in raving about bodhisattvas, but not creating the causes for attaining that state.
That Sudi Chiga by Nachiba Chagorasa, one Jetsu Chenas, Tambuni, Korum de Lavni, Chebashi Gosons.
So although here Atisha refers to Tibetans, whoever behaves in this way basically is you can say is the subject of Atisha's statement here. So then he was then asked, well then, how do you do that? And he replied, you must train sequentially from the beginning.
Da Geshilan Zambishanis, Shabu Wadan Yenila, Mutap Job Getan, Tatub Chigdan Chuguyus, Matabni Chanchu Chod the same Geni, Chichi Simjin returns with Loba Tains, Tatubni Chanchus Chansam Makipa. Chansam Makipa Migi Kiba Menishin, Perdu Medarva, Da Jinzin Yimbe, Dilla Surteni, Jinud John, Simjenla Tilteni, Japan to join in songs.
Langren Tampa said, Shapawa and I have 18 human methods and 1 horse method, 19 altogether. The human methods are to generate the mind set on supreme enlightenment and train in doing whatever one does for the welfare of sentient beings. As for the horse method, since it is our self-cherishing that prevents any bodhichitta that has been born from surviving, we adopt a sideways stance like a warrior and then confront it and train in whatever we can to harm it. With sentient beings, we cherish them and train in whatever we can to help them.
Jamba the ninji meta maybe any chanju sempati. George Panda Adeshagita, Jinjungoma, the Chagoras, the Peba Jinjungoma, the Konamba to get Chagores.
So here, this section, the last section mentioned Lamrim, Tampa, and Shapawa, that emphasized the cultivation of love and compassion as being indispensable for cultivating bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, making these 2 masses to be real and genuine students of Atisha.
Kamlong Ishani, Ranjagi, Chu Simjinla, Yole Chodi Chebi, Simjin Kikan, Ujala, Tedron Songo.
Kanlumpa said, since we act deviously towards precious sentient beings, they will also do the same to us.
Kanji and Dodo di Rangi and Tashok Chigris, Suzuki Simjin Pigilaya, Yawa Tovaina, and it's 2 Yawa Torgology. Pa and it Jeva Sombaina, 2 Jeva Sonyati. The Yunguros.
In a nutshell, look at your attitude. If you neglect others, you will be neglected by others. If you cherish others, others will cherish you.
Teba Chimbi Zawa Tsuk Mutsuk Tang, take Chimbi Soup to Tsuk Mutsu Tamchin Dilla Tubi, do Tamchi to Dilla Logi Chinjung Dilla, Genan Lake, Magena, Tedder Mudeva, Titumbi, Geshe Denny, Tedder Lojong, Talk, Talk, Tedder Tembi Song Gondenta, Tigur, Soso, Drabajong. Ranya Tedder Lo Jana, 7 someone tip Nibi, Lady Muchon she Gawa Rigdi, Cho Chambi, teaching Chugun Jundebi, Munser Doma Shijeba, Nida Davi Chanjusim, Gawan Baby, Gayang Rong, She Sumba Taros.
And it continues in reading, it is good if a habit develops that constantly checks to what extent this mind has been generated, because everything stems from it. Whether the root of the Mahayana has been planted and whether one is included amongst Mahayanists. If it does not arise, do not leave it at that, but rely on a virtuous friend who teaches it. Always keep company with the companions, that is, mind training. Read the scriptures of the teacher and their commentaries. As it goes, accumulate the collections and purify your obscurations. Since it is certain that if you train your mind in this way, the seed will be fully planted, these actions are of no little importance and a reason for joy. It is, as Atisha said in his concise method for accomplishing the Mahayana path, for those who wish to enter the gate of the Mahayana Dhamma, it's worth as an eon of effort for Bodhisattva, for Bodhicitta to grow, which, like the sun and moon, eliminates darkness and pacifies scorching heat.
On Dirida, Dinza Kanji Nanzugi, Devan Debatan, Dumar Mundeba, Koranchi Suyabainza, and in Anzolaya, the Damka Majorich, Damka Majorich, Dinza, Manzu Di Tolaya, the Mandorando, Penadinalaya, Kawan baby, King Rong said, kerangi bezun kawe ring la ya bezun cheba no ani chanjuk sem ke rungures ta kawan beb goglu ani kalakhabu shojere yushag sambaina ani thili duch kawa thameba la ya ani dungar kinne la ya hongro yoza ani nganzula ya kawan beb kon chona ya ani beba chere mato ani damkha yo mares ra til mache baina the dur dogros.
So then looking at ourselves, we naturally want to be happy and we seek no suffering. And since this is what we naturally want, we have no choice here. We have to do it. We have to cultivate bodhicitta. And just as the teacher pointed out in his text, even if it takes eons, even if it's worth an eon of effort for bodhicitta to grow, we still need to do it. We still need to continue to put an effort to develop bodhicitta. Because if we fail to do so, if we think that this is too much for me, it takes an eon, it's too much for me, therefore I will set it aside, well, we'll still continue to experience suffering. And therefore, the only viable choice for us is to continue with making effort for eons on end in order to develop bodhicitta.
Sumbala sums, the chanju sem matoba tober cheba, toba menyamba songwa, nyamna chujibi tabsos. Tambola sum, kang dombati, semki chogatia, kang li langwi yul, kangi lembi ten, cheddar lambi chogavos. Tambo ni komanam, mensum da denshi, ti havjala nebe, muchoki. Jugdum dan dember goba shede dali namgel dan tunu.
Then there is a second point here, the measure of it having a reason. It should be understood from what was already explained above. Now, the third point in the whole presentation of bodhicitta is the ritual for adopting bodhicitta. So the way to adopt it by means of ritual is divided into 3 sections, 3 points. Receiving that which has not yet been received, getting that which has been received without it degenerating, and the method for restoring it if it has degenerated. Now let's begin with receiving that which has not yet been generated or been received. Again, it has 3 points: the object from whom it is taken, the person who takes it, and the ritual by which it is taken.
Terdan jugdum lensagi pigita yul penatal leben tawatlia ani jugdum da dembachi gobar shedi ani chogadali namji na tagaran song yores tede chikparis ta kangi lembi tenlaya kariyores laundi haluso ludan sambi goni munsum kero tamji di tendurungures ta ani penanganzu ta chik debigi mit ani jugdum lembigi ta ten chodu kyobati ani debi meshayores ta debi mitsamase ani debi la lola soba ani chik kam koma la na tuzu samalo kanji ludan sambi goni munsum kero tamji ani jugdum lembi tendurungures.
So this section discusses it discusses the taking of the engaging vow, the vow of the engaging man of enlightenment. So first off, when we look at the object from whom the engaging vow is taken, who are we taking the vow from? It says the assertions of the earlier masters, a quote with Master Chittari, who said that it is not enough for the preceptor to possess the vow of aspiring bodhicitta and to abiding in the training. The person that gives you the engaging vow must possess the vow of engaging bodhicitta. Now, the person who takes it, like for example ourselves, taking the engaging vow, it says, all gods, nagas, and so forth who are physically and mentally suitable to generate aspiring bodhicitta, also a suitable basis for it, which means that we as human beings, we belong to a realm of existence that is called the desire realm. There are also other beings that belong to the desire realm. Some of the classes of beings are gods, the nagas, and so forth, and of them, there are those who are physically and mentally suited to generate aspiring bodhicitta, and therefore they're also a suitable basis for the engaging vow. The commentary on the difficult points of the lamp of the path says, repulsed by cyclic existence, mindful of death, with wisdom and great compassion.
Kong Karriers, the Lamrim Javalaya, Lamrim Javar di Pishi Lamrim Ranger, Je, the Jermuchi, Lamrim Ranger, Chetan Kibi Shesulaya, than the Lamrim Ranger song there, di Kebakashi, the Lamrim Ranger Remeldos, Chojapanda Adishak song Mari, setting it in Dil Doa. Ne peshi Jerumuchi di Lamrim Ranger di Ranger Yimba Tachik to Shagio Sarasam, then the Lamrim Javar, Kovi Yin John La Chiva Temba, Sheriff the Hinji Chewa, Shin John Tar, Har Shepa Tarki, Lamrim La Lo Jambi, Chanju Yisam the Yinguri, Nyamyon Jonse Niba Shigla, Cheva Inos.
Here, this quotation, repulsed by cyclic existence, mindful of death, with wisdom and great compassion, is attributed to the commentary on difficult points of lamp for the path. So lamp of the path was composed by Atisha. Now Atisha also composed his own commentary to the root text, the lamp of the path. Now there's a certain debate in amongst Tibetan scholars, debating whether this quotation is from Atisha's own commentary, self-commentary to his lamp for the path of enlightenment. Some say yes, some say no. Anyway, here it was made clear it was taken from the commentary on the difficult points of the lamp for the path of enlightenment, repulsed by cyclic existence, mindful of death, with wisdom and great compassion.
That's Sumbaka. Chitri Lambi Chogati, Sumbala Sum, Jovi Choga, Mushi Choga, Jugi Choga Sum, Tambula Sum, Camry Caberching, Chava, Soksapa, Samba Joma, Tambula Sum, that Ne Ginjin, Den Tamni, Chozi Shamba, Sova Davjin, Gabsun Drova, Gabsun, Lavja Jobos.
So therefore it concludes with respect to the engaging vow in saying, thus the vow taker should be someone who has gained a little experience of transforming the mentality into bodhicitta by training the mind in the steps of the path as explained above. Now, looking at the ritual for taking the engaging vow of bodhicitta, it has 3 points: the preparatory ritual, the actual ritual, and the concluding ritual, beginning with the preparation. So there are 3 points to the preparation for the ritual of taking the engaging vow: special going for refuge, accumulating the collections, the accumulations, and training in the attitude.
Dirda Ne Genjin, Den Tamni, Chozi Shamba, Sova Davjin, Gabsun Drova, Gabsun, Lavsha Jobas. Those are Kachambu Shuchra, Nima Nimalaya, Chik Lamrim, Yamlin Ching, Yimbaina, and a pay Kachambu, or Chagores, the Dimixik Shugomara.
So first off, as we make the preparations for taking upon ourselves the engaging vow, we have the special going for refuge, accumulating the collections, training in the attitude. With the special going for refuge, it is divided into 3 points: decorating the place, displaying representations, and setting up offering substances, making a request and going for refuge, and stating the training of having gone for refuge. So particularly for us as those who are practicing the Lamrim, the steps of the path of enlightenment daily, those are important details to pay attention to.
어디다 담보니스 MBS 삽쇼 MBS 삽쇼 시도를 제바 바총이 주버 젤라 젠델라 소비티 아니 추 폴드 총이 양 죽지 지신비 매도 세만 돌라 건조 숨기 승이 아 루마라 소바 당 보드 소다 잔집선비 구수남 침 치우디 치우팀불 팀부 상불라 슈슈 라브레타 메도소 초비 여지 진주르다 로모다 샤즈소 따근차 차스.
So the first step is decorating the place, displaying representations and setting up offering substances. And the instruction goes as follows. Clean an isolated place, smear it with the 5 cow substances, anoint it with exquisite perfumed water such as sandalwood water, and scatter fragrant flowers. Set out representations of the 3 jewels, mental statues and so forth, text and so forth, and images of bodhisattvas on a throne, a table, or a raised platform. Do the preparatory ritual with items such as canopies and flowers that are as valuable as possible, as well as music, food, and so forth. Arrange a throne for the teacher and also adorn it with flowers. The accumulation of merit is done by paying respect to past masters and the Sangha, and by giving a Toma offering cake to the elemental spirits.
Pachung rubusej, namju pachung rubusej. Pachung rubudi kandraji sogres lavdi, pachung nga sej, pachung nga. And it is a gas pajikin digamadas, and a pa piggy, pa mabo, kartik do the naktik do, chemiju, mabu machang jiki, and a panga. Konya.
The Niamarosas Konyo, in a chapsan and a Konyume.
Di any Jiva Salamasaj. Any Pita Jimba Salamasaj, Oma Salamasaj, or Dindigi Sutin Sogoda.
Salamasalatan,
Joe Matan Salasatan.
Okay.
Madi or Dindigi Sushabi, Rubute. So
there are things here which are pretty astonishing, let's call it like that. It's pretty astonishing. So it says that, for example, clean an isolated place, smear it with the 5 cow substances. So in the Tibetan tradition, they make pills that are made from those 5 cow substances. So it's pretty overwhelming in that, first of all, it has to be a special cow. It needs to be a red cow in that it hasn't got any patches of white or black. It needs to be completely red. I guess they're probably brown, this reddish cow. Then for the substances, so you have feces, or dung, you can say dung, urine, milk, and so forth, and they need to be collected before hitting the ground. So you get those substances from a red cow, which are considered to be very clean, and you work them into a pill, which is used here. It says, smear it with the 5 cow substances.
Lutor town the Pachung Rubuset, Nibert Gogores, Big Zaman Soyak, the Chagendi, Pachung Rubuk.
Lutorma.
Look, nurse said that you subola Martin Soba the Chili, and Lusang lodur chedi pachung rupu ngibar tu gogul asira. Ta di men soba ina da choga mansan yodu sora choga mansa sana jik pi chagin yawu chik megyo sora chadu asira.
So this cow pill that is made of those 5 substances is used also for example, making a Naga torma, which is used in a Naga ritual. So sometimes in some rituals, if you have some physical ailment, a sore, a wound, and so forth, and that could be attributed to harm by Nagas, it is said that when you do this rituals in order to appease the Nagas and you offer a torma, then you need to use this 5 cow substances pills. And if you don't have it, well, it means that the ritual that you make doesn't have all the limbs, all the conducive conditions that make it complete.
아니 늦어다 야가기 배시 힌두라 야자자다 요사레스 아니 다 별라 파종 루부도 끔부슈 차고레스 간스나 밥마보 마잔디 야가라 뱀 비부도 asro 야가 벤 야가 소조 라 소바 딘딜라야 밥마보디 비벌다 치게라 마부도 베나 유럽도 뱀 마보라 아주 별로 요 말했어요. 메디기 아니 지어도 끔부시오지. 아니 바종으로부터 싸쳔부 시오제고야 지자고 그래서.
Those rituals have probably originated from the Indian tradition. Geshe reckons that if you look at some Hindu rituals, you find something that is similar to that. But still in Tibet, it was those pills that were made of cow substances was so rare because it was so difficult to find a red cow in Tibet. It is likely that they were very common in India, so it wasn't that hard to come by those pills in India, but in Tibet it was extremely difficult. It is also likely that in Europe, for example, it wasn't, there are also red cow or brown cows in Europe, so it wasn't that hard, but in Tibet it was so rare, so those pills that were made of cow substances are so precious.
아니 쇼게 낭 짱마소라고 낭 짱마소 건도도 짱마소디 인지민이 그 봐주기 저와단 춘이 때렸다니 디게 준 아니 짱마소자디 콘지델이야지 아니 메토드 디케메도 레라고 쇼치 닌지고 쇼치 라바 룩샤도 배 닌지고 딘들로 그런자.
So Geshe lived in India, in South India, for many years. So he said that it's actually quite common to see that in the morning in Indian villages, as people wake up and they kind of clean the house at the beginning of the day, then you mix water with some cow dung and then kind of you smear it or scatter it on your doorstep. And also the women then go out with garlands of flowers and kind of wave it at the entrance to the door. It's quite common to see such rituals in South India.
아니 봐주기 좋아디 정습도들 케케 말단 캄발라 고자요 말에 아니 독장 망부요래 이네 좋아디 테스트 메파르니 디 도와탄샤반 안 독장 사마 균이 용문다디 봐주기 좋아 캄보.
So the living style in the place that Geshe lived in India many years is such that the doors are not being kept closed or locked during the day. So often kind of the door to the house is open, and also in South India, there are many mosquitoes. But once you kind of burns out cow dung and it spreads some smoke, then mosquitoes don't really come around. So it's an excellent mosquito repellent.
어딘지도 그래서다 드네만 게위신이 슈비 덴트 메토지 겜바양 샤모 dombashi kodula common namni gendin ningurtan jombi tormatan yo goni chosa batan choba yang mena kesan le somba tarji rigi katsar pro soji kyang drublas. Yona yomeba neden chimbi zalni. Chokbi lor mushong zam sham godis. Chola. Pe namgi mangyu tang samyusu semki shudusu chobangembi megima songkes. 조직이 계란 속에 다 배버설이야 계란도 샘기기 동바시위 갑둘라 아니 쳐봐야고 표면도 아니 동바기기 말이 송레스.
Anyway, someone at home said that those 5 substances are called panchgavya. Have you heard about it? Okay. Anyway, clean and isolated place, smear it with the 5 cow substances, anoint it with exquisite perfumed water such as sandalwood water and scattered fragrant flowers. Set up representations of the 3 jewels, metal statues and so forth, texts and so forth, and images of bodhisattvas on a throne, table, or raised platform. Do the preparatory rituals with items such as canopies and flowers that are valuable as possible, as well as music, food, and so forth. Arrange a throne for the teacher and also adorn it with flowers. The accumulation of merit is done by paying respect to past masters and the Sangha by giving a toma offering cake to elemental spirits. If you do not have any offerings at all, as described in a good Ian Sutra, it can be done even by offering scraps of cloth. If you do have offerings, they should have been obtained through great effort without deceit, and should be arrayed in such a way that your friends cannot help marveling. When a teacher was asked to confer the man generation by Tibetan teachers in Mangyul and Samye, he reportedly said that it did not arise through inferior offerings, which means that the teacher said that if the offerings that you arrange for such a ritual are just kind of lesser or inferior offerings, the rite will not be done well, so that the vow will not be generated.
Tenyang tembi tsuwo ko ramni chenshi metame sonda tenyang tembi tsuwo ko ramni chenshi metame lebam yang dodba yanchi ani sheruki paru chembege lebam tindich gogregs.
And then he also said that a consecrated statue of the main master of the teachings was imperative as a representation. This is indispensable. And at least the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom should be used as a text.
Tadin sarero tatsu ani choksa goenza ro sonum sa goenza ani sonum sabigi chedu pena nganzu kulaya ramne chedeati ro kulaya ramne cheadi zu di ani jenta ani choksabi chedu jenta choksabi chedu yins jerumbu chigta ramne kolgi ani son dordu jor dinanolaya chetangi kulaya ramne methame dindi mari song ramne inchimni ani chegonge shibach mares ramne zedo adina ne kab dilaya teng zo dilaya ku ramne chinchi ramne chinchi metamere soyadi ani nganzu chosabi chedutan ani chobapyadi chosa drubjang chedinza ani ramne chinchi injimi gori sungosare.
Now, one point that Lama Tsongkhapa mentions here is for preparing for the ritual for taking upon oneself the engaging vow. It says that one should arrange a consecrated statue. He also said that the consecrated statue of the main master of the teaching was imperative as a representation. So a consecrated statue. In general, it's not that all statues necessarily need to be consecrated. But to here, the consecration of a statue of the main master of the teaching is done as part of accumulating the collections and purifying negativities and obscurations, which are part of the preparation for amassing the collection of merit needed for taking the engaging vow.
Teni pagbi sok jentang loma tuche ko zambo ko temo jarwala lami sokshin namji yongden la hin tabane tamaje du juglas ro ani tan sokshin gi kosong to gi yongden ma anji ni loma le ya ngonchongi shiba jyoto ba na ani lomi gyolaya ani sokshin la maybe ani tebata 기그러 왔으라 다디 디리송 거서라 아니 산지 찬스 리리 되나 라니 두버 삼니 아니 다비기 더 산조 양라도 봤다고 아니 제도 주고 그랬어.
Then the assembly of Aryas is invoked. The student washed and well dressed with a hand joint is encouraged by the Guru to generate clear faith in the excellent qualities of the merit field from the depth of their heart, which means that here we're looking at the ritual for taking upon yourself the engaging vow. So you have made those preparations, cleaned the place, have arranged those representations of body, speech, and mind. You've made offerings and so forth, and then the teacher's role is to give you an explanation of how to visualize the field of accumulation, the field of merit, as it is called here. So the assembly of Aryas is invoked, it is invited into the field of accumulation. You get an explanation from the teacher on how to think about it in order to engender the development of depth of faith that will come from the depth of your heart. And then it says he should, or they should then slowly do the 7 limb practice and imagine that they are in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
어디다 더 제마 들 샤워로 간주다 제마 들이야 되야지 아니 종바이나 간주 줘바지 피 면섬 담자전도 송바이나 더 약부 빼어서로서로 디다 저도 찬스 다야레스로
So this section explains the way to take upon yourself the mind of enlightenment through ritual. So it'd be actually nice to do it together. So maybe what we can do in the previous week is to continue to read through the text and then make this appropriate recitation, and we can take together the aspiring mind of enlightenment. Now, of course, it depends on whether people want to do it, but let's say that in general, this option is possible and we can do it next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will leave it here for now. So we will finish off with saying the final Lamrim prayer. Forming 2 collections versus space that have amassed from working with effort that is practiced for a great length of time. Might become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded parts of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means strong by the strong force of compassion. May I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I've discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by even this graded path of enlightenment, completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent path. never departed in any of the lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.